It started as a good night. We hadn't gone out in weeks, so when Maya invited us to her rooftop birthday party, I thought it would be nice. A chance to be normal. The city lights glittered like they were strung just for us, music thumping low from portable speakers, the smell of grilled skewers drifting over the crowd. Jeanne stood close, her fingers brushing mine every now and then, and I felt that rare, warm ease settle in my chest. Then she saw him. Daniel. Of course he was here. Maya knew him through work. He was leaning against the railing, laughing with someone, but when he spotted me, his face lit up. "Hey, Mikey." I smiled, stepping toward him, and Jean's hand clamped around my wrist. Her voice was low, sharp. "What's he doing here?" I turned. "Jeanne, he's Maya's friend. He's not here for me." "Really?" "Because the way he's looking at you says otherwise." I pulled my arm back. "You're being ridiculous." Her laugh was humorless. "Am I? Or are you just enjoying the attention?" The heat in my chest was instant, part shame, part anger. "Do you even hear yourself? You're the one who pushed me away for months. He was just someone to talk to. Someone you needed," she shot back. "More than me." I blinked. "If you think that, then maybe you don't understand me at all." People were starting to notice, their conversations dipping into awkward pauses as they glanced our way. I hated scenes. Jeanne knew that. But she just stood there, arms crossed, like daring me to prove her wrong. I shook my head. "I'm not doing this here." And I walked out. The night air hit me hard, cold, sharp, cleaner than inside. I didn't even hear her footsteps until she was right behind me. "Mikey, wait." I spun around. "No. You wait. You say you love me, but every time you get scared, you turn me into the enemy. I can't keep being punished for wanting you." Her face crumpled, the anger draining, leaving only raw panic. "I'm sorry. I don't know how to stop. It's like every time you look happy without me, I think it's the beginning of the end." "It will be," I said, "if you keep treating me like I'm halfway out the door." We stood in the middle of the empty street, city noise humming in the distance, neither of us moving. For the first time, I saw it, really saw it, that her love wasn't the problem. Her fear was. And if she didn't face it, it wouldn't matter how much we wanted each other. We didn't go back to the party. We barely spoke on the ride home, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, but loaded, like a rope stretched to the breaking point. When we got inside, Jeanne went straight to the bedroom. I almost let her shut the door. Almost. But my hand caught it. She sat on the edge of the bed, head in her hands. "I'm tired of being like this," she whispered. "I hate myself for it." I stood there, not trusting my voice yet. "I used to think," she continued, "that if I kept you at arm's length, it would hurt less if you left. But the truth is, I've been living like that since I was 8 years old. Since the day we watched the orphanage van drive away without us." I felt my breath hitch. "That day," she said, looking up at me now, eyes wet, "I decided I'd never let myself need anyone again. Not like that. Not so bad that I'd feel like I'd die if they were gone." "You've always had me," I said softly. "I know," she said. "That's the problem. I love you so much it scares the hell out of me. And when you're scared like that, you do stupid things. You push away the person you want most, just to see if they'll still be there when you come crawling back. Her hands were shaking now, and she looked so small sitting there. And you always were there, Mikey. Every damn time. But I know I can't keep doing this to you. One day you won't be. I crossed the room and sat beside her. I was never going to leave because of your fear, I said. But I might if you keep letting it control you. Her lip trembled. I don't want to lose you. Then fight for me, I said. Not against me. For once in your life, choose to believe I'm not going anywhere. She broke then, leaning into me, sobbing into my shoulder, every bit of her weight pressing into me like she was trying to anchor herself. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And for the first time, I believed she meant it in a way that might actually change something. The apartment was still when I woke. For a moment, I thought Jeanne had gone to work early, avoiding the weight of last night. But then I caught the smell, coffee and something warm, buttery. I padded out to the kitchen. She was there, hair messy, hoodie hanging off one shoulder, pulling croissants out of the oven like she'd been doing it every day of her life. She looked up, eyes tentative. Morning, she said. I sat down at the counter. Morning. She placed a mug in front of me, my mug, the chipped one with the faded skyline. She'd remembered exactly how I take it. No small talk. No fake cheer. Just the coffee. And then she set a plate of croissants down, sitting across from me. I know I can't fix everything with breakfast, she said. But I didn't want you to wake up wondering if last night was real. I stared at her, the steam curling between us. I didn't think it wasn't real, I said. I just don't know if it'll last. Her hands tightened around her cup. It will, she said, voice low but steady. I'm going to prove it. Not with words, you've heard enough of those, but every damn day until you believe me. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But somewhere inside me, there was still that ache, all the nights I'd reached for her and found only cold distance, all the ways I'd told myself to stop hoping for more. So I nodded. Okay. It was the closest I could get to trust right now. She smiled, a little broken but determined. Okay, she echoed. It was a Thursday, gray and heavy with rain. I'd just finished my shift at the bookstore when I saw her, Jeanne, waiting outside with an umbrella big enough for two. You could have just texted me, I said. I wanted to walk you home, she replied. I haven't done that in a long time. She held the umbrella out, letting me step under first. Our arms brushed as we walked, her hand twitching like she wanted to take mine but didn't want to rush it. Halfway home, we stopped at the little corner bakery we used to haunt when we first moved to the city. Jeanne ordered my favorite pastry without asking. I didn't even realize how much she remembered until the plate was in front of me. She was doing it, the little things, the quiet care. For the first time in months, it felt like she was there again. And then the door swung open, and Daniel walked in. I froze. He saw me instantly, smiled, and started toward our table. Daniel, the man I'd spent 2 months with while Jeanne was pushing me away. The man who'd been kind, sweet, and never once made me question if I was wanted. The man I'd left because he wasn't Jeanne. Hey, Mikey, he said, glancing at Jeanne. Didn't expect to see you here. Jeanne stiffened. Daniel. He looked between us. You two are. Yeah, Jeanne said before I could answer. Her voice was steady, but I felt the grip of her hand under the table tighten around mine. We are. Daniel's eyes softened, like he understood something unspoken. Well, I'm glad you're happy. He smiled at me one last time, then left. Jeanne kept her hand in mine even after he was gone. You could have told him it was complicated, she murmured. I don't want complicated, I said. Not anymore. Her thumb brushed my knuckles. Then I'll keep proving you don't have to. It started small. A missed call. A text she didn't answer for 3 hours. She said she'd been caught in a meeting. I told her it was fine. But something in my chest was already tightening. That night, we were supposed to have dinner together. She came home late, hair damp from the rain, carrying takeout in a paper bag. Sorry, she said, setting it down. The meeting ran over. I knew I should just accept it, people work late. But my voice came out sharper than I meant. Funny how you never used to have meetings this late before. Her eyes narrowed. You think I'm lying? I hated how defensive she sounded. I think I've been here before. Waiting for you. Wondering why you're not where you said you'd be. And I'm not going to go back to that. Her jaw tightened. Mikey, I'm not pushing you away this time. Then why does it feel like I'm already losing you again? The words hung there, heavier than either of us wanted to admit. She stepped closer. Because you're scared. And I get it. I earned that fear. But you can't keep measuring me against the version of me that hurt you. I'm trying to be better, let me be better. My throat burned. Then don't give me reasons to doubt you. She dropped her gaze, her voice quieter now. I'm not Daniel, Mikey. I'm not anyone else. I'm the idiot who took too long to tell you I love you. And if you can't forgive that, then maybe you'll never believe me no matter what I do. She left the takeout on the counter and walked into the bedroom. And just like that, the glass between us, the one we'd been trying to mend, had another crack. The apartment was quiet enough to hear the hum of the fridge. Jeanne stayed in the bedroom with the door shut. I stayed in the living room, curled into the couch, takeout still sitting untouched on the counter. I told myself I wasn't going to cry. But my chest ached the way it does when you're holding in too many words you'll never say. I thought about knocking on the door. About apologizing. About telling her I wasn't really angry, I was scared. But fear has a way of making you stubborn. So I sat there. And she stayed in there. And hours passed like we were strangers in the same space. Around midnight, I heard her footsteps. The bedroom door opened, and she walked past me toward the kitchen. She didn't look at me. She poured herself a glass of water, drank half, then went back inside. I stared at the space she just occupied, and it felt like the room had gotten colder. When I finally went to bed, she was asleep on her side of the mattress, her back to me. I laid there, watching the shadows on the wall, wondering if this was how it started last time, the distance, the silences, the cracks. And somewhere deep down, a question I didn't want to face formed. If we can't survive one fight, how will we survive a lifetime? Morning came without warmth. I woke to an empty bed. The sound of the shower was faint in the background, water hitting tile like a clock ticking down. By the time I got to the kitchen, she was already dressed for work. Her hair was still damp, a few strands sticking to her cheek. She moved around me without touching, poured herself coffee, and grabbed her bag. Jeanne, I started. She shook her head. I can't right now. I'll be late. Before I could stop her, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Daniel standing there, holding a book I'd left at his place months ago. Hey, he said. Thought you might want this back. I froze, the air shifting instantly. Jeanne stopped in her tracks, her hands still on the doorknob. Daniel glanced between us. Everything okay? Jeanne's voice was cool. We're fine. It sounded like a lie, even to me. I took the book from Daniel, muttering a thanks, but the damage was done. His presence was a reminder of everything Jeanne had been trying to push away and everything I'd used to cope with her absence. After Daniel left, Jeanne closed the door slowly. Then she turned, leaning against it. Do you ever think you'd be happier with him? The question hit like a gut punch. No, I said immediately. But I do wonder if I'd hurt less. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Then maybe I should stop pretending I know how to love you the way you need. I stepped forward, closing the gap between us. Don't you dare, I said. My voice cracked, but I meant every word. You don't get to run just because it's hard. We've survived worse. We're not letting a night of silence break us. She looked up at me then, and for the first time since the fight, her eyes softened. We didn't move for a long time. Jeanne was still leaning against the door, her bag on the floor, my hand still halfway between us like I didn't know if she'd take it or push it away. Finally, she said, Mikey. I'm terrified. All the time. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. I'm scared that if I let myself love you fully, I'll mess it up again. I'll ruin us. Her voice trembled, and it hurt more than her coldness ever had. I'd rather you ruin us trying, I said quietly, than lose you to your own fear. She let out a shaky laugh. You make it sound so easy. It's not easy, I said. Every time you pull away, I feel like I'm 12 again in that orphanage, watching the only person I care about walk toward the gate and not knowing if she's ever coming back. Her eyes filled instantly. God, Mikey. I never wanted to be that person for you. Then stop being her, I whispered. That was the moment she stepped forward and took my face in her hands. I love you, she said. Not careful, not hesitant, raw. I love you so much it scares me. And I'm done letting that fear dictate how I treat you. I swallowed hard. You don't get to just say it. You have to prove it. Every day. Because I can't keep stitching myself back together every time you get scared. She nodded, eyes locked on mine. Then let me start now. She kissed me, not like before, not like the uncertain touches we'd shared when we first crossed the line from sister-like to something else. This was desperate, honest, the kind that says I'm here, I'm staying. When she finally pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. I'm sorry it took me this long. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I believed her. The morning after felt different. Jeanne made coffee while humming, actually humming, and slid my mug toward me with a crooked smile. It was small, but it felt monumental. Like we'd survived a winter and could finally feel the sun again. We didn't talk much about last night. The words were still settling in both of us, still fragile. Instead, we sat in quiet comfort, hands brushing occasionally over the counter. That peace lasted exactly until my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Mikey? The voice on the other end made my stomach drop. It's Clara. From the orphanage. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. Clara? What's going on? There's someone here asking about you. Says she's your sister. The word didn't land right. Sister. I didn't have a sister, not in the blood sense, anyway. Jeanne froze in the kitchen, her hand tightening around her mug like she could hear every word. She says she's been looking for you for years, Clara continued. Wants to meet. Jeanne set her mug down slowly. Do you want to go? I looked at her, at the woman I'd spent half my life loving, losing, and finding again. And I wondered what it would mean if another piece of my past suddenly walked through the door. We met her at a small cafe on the east side, the kind with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs. She was already there when we arrived, mid-30s, brown hair, eyes like mine. Mikey, she said, standing. Something in my chest shifted. Her name was Elise. She explained in short, shaky sentences how her mother had died when I was 2, how she'd been too young to keep me, how the system had swallowed me whole while she'd ended up with distant relatives. It was strange, she felt like a stranger and a mirror at the same time. Jeanne sat beside me, silent. Her hand rested on my knee under the table, but her touch was stiff, almost forced. Elise smiled at her. You must be Jeanne. Mikey's. She let the question hang. Jeanne hesitated. We're close. It was such a diluted word for everything we were. I glanced at her, but her eyes stayed on her coffee. After an hour, Elise and I agreed to meet again, just the two of us. She wanted to tell me more, show me photos, fill in the gaps. When we got home, Jeanne tossed her keys on the counter and went straight to the sink, running the water too loud. You don't have to be jealous, I said, leaning on the doorframe. She didn't turn. It's not jealousy. Then what is it? Her shoulders tightened. It's the reminder that there are parts of you I'll never know. That someone else might mean something to you in a way I can't compete with. I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around her from behind. You're not competing. You're it, Jeanne. You've always been it. She leaned back against me, but her silence told me this was a wound words alone wouldn't heal. Over the next week, Elise and I met twice. Once at the park, once at her apartment. She showed me photos of a young woman with my smile and my stubborn chin, our mother. She told stories about her laugh, the way she sang in the kitchen. Every piece of it was intoxicating. It was like finding a missing chapter of my own life. Jeanne tried to be supportive. She'd ask how it went, nod when I answered, even smiled sometimes. But there was a tightness in her voice, like every word was an effort. One night, when I came home later than I'd planned, she was on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her, TV flickering on a low volume. Hey, I said, dropping my bag. She muted the screen. Did you eat? I grabbed something with Elise. She nodded once. Right. The silence that followed wasn't angry, it was worse. It was hollow. I sat next to her. Jeanne. She pulled the blanket tighter. I know you're just catching up. But it feels like you're building a bridge to somewhere I can't follow. And after everything we just went through, it scares me. Her voice cracked on the last words, and that was when I realized this wasn't just about Elise. It was about every time I'd left her, by choice or by accident. Every time she'd had to watch me give a piece of myself to someone else, wondering if I'd come back whole. I took her hand. "You're not losing me. I promise." She looked at me, and I saw both trust and doubt fighting for space. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I was running late again. Coffee with Elise had turned into lunch, and lunch into hours of swapping stories. When I walked into the apartment, Jeanne was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed. "You didn't text," she said flatly. "I know, I'm sorry. You always know, Mikey. You're always sorry. But you keep doing it." The air felt heavy, like the storm outside had followed me in. "This isn't fair," I said. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm just learning where I came from." She laughed, short, bitter. "And where does that leave me? The girl who's been here through everything, just sitting at home like a placeholder while you run off to build some shiny new life with your real family?" Her voice cracked on the last words, but the anger kept her from softening. I stepped closer. "Jeanne, you are my real family." Her eyes shimmered, but she shook her head. "I'm scared one day you won't believe that. That you'll wake up and think I was just a chapter before the real story started." It was the first time she'd said it out loud, that she felt like she was competing not just with Elise, but with a version of my life that didn't include her at all. I took her face in my hands. "You're not a chapter, Jeanne. You're the whole damn book." For a second, she let herself believe it. I could feel it in the way her shoulders dropped, the way her breath slowed. But the doubt was still there, buried under years of fear. 2 days later, she called me into the living room. No TV, no music, just Jeanne sitting cross-legged on the couch with her hair tied back like she was bracing for a fight. "We can't keep doing this," she said. I sat opposite her. "Doing what?" "This half-life. You come home smelling like coffee and rain, telling me about all the things Elise said, all the stories you never had before, and I'm happy for you, Mikey, I am, but every time, it feels like you're somewhere else." Her eyes didn't waver. "I need to know where I stand. Am I the person you build your life with, or am I just the person you come back to until something better sticks?" It hit like a gut punch because it wasn't anger talking. It was heartbreak, raw and tired. "Jeanne, you're it for me." "You've always been it," I said, my voice cracking. She shook her head. "Then show me." "Not with words. With your choices. If you're going to keep pouring yourself into her world, into a past we can't change, then I can't keep standing here waiting for you to come back to ours." It was the closest she'd come to giving me an ultimatum. Not because she wanted to control me, but because she was bleeding out quietly, and I'd been too distracted to see it. I crossed the space between us, kneeling so our knees touched. "Jeanne, I don't care how many missing pieces I find, you're my home. Nothing changes that." Her hands trembled when she took mine, like she wanted to believe it but didn't know how anymore. Elise invited me over on a Sunday. She'd found an old videotape, our mother at 23, singing in the kitchen, flour on her cheeks. I don't know how long I sat there on her couch, eyes locked on that flickering image, afraid to blink in case she vanished. When the video ended, Elise put her hand over mine. "You've got her voice," she said softly. "And her heart." For a moment, I felt something dangerous, the pull of a life that might have been. One where Jeanne and I had never met. One where I had birthdays with my mother, photographs with my sister, maybe even a whole different self. I left later than I planned. When I got home, Jeanne was at the kitchen table, dinner untouched. "You didn't answer my texts," she said. "I was with Elise. She showed me something important." She nodded slowly, the muscle in her jaw tightening. "And did you think about me at all while you were there? Or was I just the girl waiting at home again?" It should have been an easy answer. But I hesitated, not because I didn't love her, but because part of me had been lost in that imagined life. Her chair scraped back. "That's all I needed to know." I caught her wrist before she could walk away. "Jeanne, don't do this. I love you. I choose you. Every time." She turned to me, eyes glassy. "Then stop making me doubt it." Her voice broke, and so did I. I closed the space between us, holding her like I'd never let go again. And in that moment, I knew the past could only take as much as I let it. Jeanne was my now. Jeanne was my future. The next morning, I called Elise. I told her I couldn't keep splitting myself in two. I wanted her in my life, but not at the cost of the person who had been my anchor since the day we ran from the orphanage. She understood. More than I expected. "You're allowed to choose your present over your past, Mikey," she said gently. "I'll still be here." When I got home, Jeanne was curled on the couch, knees tucked to her chest. I knelt in front of her. I told Elise I need space. Not because I don't care about her, but because you're the life I'm building. You're the person I want to come home to. Always. She blinked at me, eyes tired and wary. "Mikey, you've said things like that before." "I know. That's why I'm not asking you to believe me right now." I reached for her hand. "I'm asking you to watch me. Watch me prove it, every single day." For the first time in weeks, something shifted in her, not full trust, not yet, but a crack in the wall she'd built. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to hers. "No more half-love, Jeanne. No more making you question if you're enough. You've always been more than enough." Her breath hitched, and she whispered, "I want to believe you so badly." "Then let me make you." The days after my promise felt different. Not because Jeanne suddenly trusted me again, she didn't, but because she stopped pulling away quite as hard. We made breakfast together on Saturday. It wasn't like the old days where she'd hum under her breath and bump her hip against mine. This time, she was quiet, measuring flour with exact precision, but she let me stand beside her without flinching. We walked to the bookstore downtown. She paused at the romance section, ran her fingers along the spines, then handed me a novel with a cover that looked suspiciously like us, two girls in the rain, one smiling like she knew a secret. "I thought you didn't like romance," I teased. "I don't," she said, avoiding my eyes. "But maybe I want to try." That night, we sat on opposite ends of the couch, reading. Halfway through, she shifted closer, just enough that our knees touched. My heart ached at the smallness of it, because for us, this tiny gesture was an earthquake. She still didn't say, "I believe you." She still didn't tell me she loved me again. But she stayed. She let me touch her hand when I passed her the tea. She let me hold her gaze for more than a second. And when I brushed a crumb from her cheek, she didn't turn away. It was raining on Tuesday, the kind that makes the city smell like wet concrete and coffee grounds. I'd stayed late at the cafe, cleaning up after a rush, and came home with my hoodie damp and my hair sticking to my face. Jeanne was in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring a pot of soup. When she looked up, I grinned without thinking, the kind of grin I only ever had for her. She froze. And then, out of nowhere, her eyes filled. "What is it?" I asked, stepping closer. She shook her head, pressing the back of her wrist to her mouth like she could hold it in. "I forgot," she whispered. "I forgot what it feels like when you look at me like that. Like I'm home." I didn't say anything. I just wrapped my arms around her, felt her tremble, and kissed the side of her head. She held on tight, her face pressed to my shoulder. For the first time since everything broke, she didn't pull back first. The soup burned. Neither of us cared. It was just after midnight. We were sitting on the couch, half watching a documentary neither of us cared about. Jeanne had her knees pulled up, my blanket draped over her shoulders. Without looking at me, she said, "I've been so scared." I muted the TV. "Of what?" She swallowed hard. "Of loving you the wrong way. Of losing the only person who's ever really been mine. And of wanting you more than I should." Her voice cracked on the last word. I shifted closer, my knee brushing hers. "Jeanne." She cut me off, eyes shining. "I love you, Mikey. I never stopped. Even when I was pushing you away, even when I was saying those awful things. I thought if I buried it deep enough, it wouldn't destroy us. But it did anyway." Her breath hitched. "Please don't make me do that again. Please don't leave. I can't lose you twice." I didn't hesitate. I cupped her face, made her look at me. "I'm not going anywhere. You hear me? You're it for me. Always have been." She leaned into my hands, and I kissed her, not the urgent, desperate kind we'd shared before, but slow, certain, unshakable. When we finally pulled back, she whispered, "Okay. Then I'll believe you." And for the first time, I knew she meant it. The rain had stopped by morning. Soft light spilled through the blinds, catching on the steam from the coffee pot. Jeanne was at the stove, hair a sleepy mess, wearing my sweatshirt like it was hers. For a second, I didn't move. I just stood there, watching her, not because it was new, but because it was ours again. She glanced over her shoulder. "You're staring." "Yeah," I said, leaning against the doorway. "Just making sure you're real." She rolled her eyes, but there was a smile tucked into the corner of her mouth. "Get over here and taste this before I ruin it." We ate at the tiny kitchen table we bought secondhand when we first moved in. Between bites, she reached across, taking my hand without looking up. It wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't need to be. After breakfast, she pulled me back into bed. We didn't talk much, just traced lazy circles on each other's arms, letting the quiet wrap around us like a blanket. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't bracing for the next fight, the next distance, the next crack in the wall. It wasn't the beginning of something new. It was the return of something we'd almost lost, and the start of loving it better this time. It started with a phone call. The cafe where I worked was short-staffed, and my manager asked if I could cover extra hours for the next 2 weeks. It meant leaving earlier in the morning and coming home late. Jeanne said she didn't mind. She smiled, told me she'd keep dinner warm. But by the 4th night, the smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. One evening, I came home to find her at the kitchen table, sketchbook open, barely acknowledging me. "Tough day?" I asked, setting my bag down. She shrugged. "Just a lot of nothing." I knew that tone. It was the same one she used when she was trying to hide the fact she missed me, and that missing me scared her. I crossed the room and kissed the top of her head. "I'm not pulling away," I murmured. "Just working a lot. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She didn't look up right away, but after a beat, she put her pencil down and caught my wrist. "I know. I hate feeling like you're slipping away, even when you're not." That night, I stayed up with her, sketching nonsense in the margins of her paper while she laughed quietly. It was a small test, and we passed. But I could feel life lining up bigger ones just ahead. It hit on a Thursday morning. Jeanne's art program lost its funding. She came home early, portfolio under her arm, face pale like she'd been hollowed out. "They shut it down," she said, dropping her bag onto the couch. Just like that. No warning, no nothing. I set my coffee aside and pulled her into my arms, but she was stiff. "I feel stupid," she muttered. "Like I built my whole life around something that could just vanish overnight." "You didn't build your life around it," I said softly. "You built it around you. And you're still here." But she didn't seem convinced. Over the next few days, she drifted, not from me, exactly, but from herself. She stayed in bed late, skipped meals, stared at blank pages instead of sketching. One night, she admitted, "I'm scared if I can't create, you'll look at me differently." I didn't even let her finish that thought. "Jeanne, I fell in love with you, not what you make. You could never draw another line and I'd still want you every damn day." That was the night she finally let me hold her until she fell asleep. It wasn't the storm that scared me, it was how easily storms could make her think she was worth less than she was. And if there was one thing I swore to do now, it was to never let her forget her own worth again. It started as a joke. I was rinsing dishes after dinner, Jeanne leaning against the counter with her mug of tea. "We should just get a bigger place," I said, half laughing. "One with room for all your sketchbooks and none of my dishes." Her eyes flicked up to mine. "Why not?" she said. At first I thought she was teasing back, but then she added, "We've been dancing around the future. Pretending we're just drifting when we both know we're not. If we're doing this, really doing this, then maybe it's time we build something that's ours from the ground up." I set the sponge down. "You're serious?" She nodded once. I could see the tremor of fear under her resolve, but she didn't look away. The next weekend, we started looking. Tiny balconies with peeling paint. Brick walls that smelled faintly of history. Kitchens so small we'd have to bump hips just to cook. Every place we visited, I caught her glancing at me like she was trying to memorize the way I looked when I was happy. When we signed the lease, she reached for my hand under the table. "This is us," she said quietly. "Not sisters. Not almost. Us." And for the first time, there was no hesitation in her voice. We'd planned it perfectly. Pizza boxes on the floor, a cheap bottle of champagne, a stack of old movies ready to play on my laptop since we didn't even have furniture yet. But somewhere between unpacking the last box and popping the cork, Jeanne's mood shifted. She went quiet, her smiles thinner than they had been all day. I found her in the bedroom, sitting on the bare mattress, knees pulled up. "What's going on?" I asked, dropping down beside her. She hesitated, then said, "It's stupid. I should be happy. But all I can think about is, we don't have anyone to invite. No family to show this to. No one to say, 'Hey, we made it.' The words punched a hole right through me. She wasn't wrong. Our victories always happened in a bubble, without witnesses. Just us. I took her hand, lacing our fingers. Then maybe that's the point. Every we made it is for us, not for them. No one's missing from this room except the people we don't need. She leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. You make it sound easy. It's not easy, I said. But it's ours. We didn't open the champagne that night. We just sat on the floor in the half-dark, listening to the hum of the fridge in the kitchen, letting the silence settle into something that felt permanent,